love to see the Elise actually making it through. It was banned both games last time around in the series, but I think it's a very strong forward foot, at least, for AL here, especially for Xiaohao, adding another champion to the repertoire. But it will just beat the Lucian Nami locked in for Doggo Baolan.
Now, I said just then, I want to see things that can fight towards the bot side for Elise. Now, for those of you that haven't kind of caught as much of the season so far, you might consider that a little bit strange, because Elise was always like the Renekton Elise, even set Elise at some points around Season 10 as well, where you're looking for solo lanes that can fight early. You can dive those turrets as well. That has been less of the new season identity of Elise, where actually what you're looking to do is very quickly, very healthily clear towards level 3, level 4. You can go towards like your 3 camp into level 3, into a gank on a side lane, then go back towards a scuttle crab. But where this has most importantly happened has been about getting a bot lane and protecting them or winning an early fight to kind of set them up for success. With the Zeri Yuumi, you're expecting some pressure to go down towards them from that Lucian Nami. If the Elise is there at level 3 to stop them from dying or stop them from taking too heavy trades, that can be very important for allowing these more scaling bot lanes to come into the game. That's been what Elise has been very strong at in the season so far.
Man, I love to see that pick being picked up more, at least let through. In the LPL as well.
No arachnophobia
like
here? None of that?
No, I mean, I definitely have arachnophobia. Maybe not in League of Legends. Just because I feel like at essence...
You've obviously not played against Renekton at least.
Yeah. But it fits the LPL jungle style, and I think it's interesting here. As we did get the Sejuani, the final pick for Ultra Prime in the first phase. The immediate ban that comes out, as well as the Fiora. So a lot of solo lane focus, I'm sure, coming up next.
Yeah, I wonder if we actually will see something like that Renekton banned away by Ultra Prime. It's very strong in top lane, of course, into stuff like the Cassante, which is also a very good blind pick. It is blind pickable in general, is the Renekton. But also, with that, at least you can lock it in towards that mid lane and have that kind of ability to play around it. Of course, with the Sejuani themselves, might actually be quite valuable for them to fourth pick it. Renekton Sejuani, melee synergy, and when you get that empowered W from Renekton, of course, it just allows you to pretty much instantly stack the Sejuani passive as well. So I'm looking towards that, and maybe fourth pick, that could be potentially good to lock in for themselves, and a denial pick away from anyone's legend, who are more content to remove some mid lane picks like that Cassidy, who can sit and scale and then become just a warhead later into the game.
I'm wondering if they allow, if AL allow Cassante through here for Hery. I feel like Cassante fits Ultra Prime. Okay, well, they banned it away. I was gonna say, they really gonna let him get it 3 times in a row? I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna do it. But they will steal away the Renekton.
Yeah, that was the obvious thing for me, because I saw like the Cassante ban, and I'm like, maybe could have banned away the Renekton. Maybe they were hoping that it would have been left 3 to last pick, so they could snap it up in 4-5 themselves. But now they can look towards their own answers. Jax has been really powerful in the LPL. Typically, we see a lot of melee early brawl comps in the LPL, but at least we did before that break. When the rest of the world started playing, though, the LCK, the LEC, we saw Jax struggle to find as much success as, say, someone like you should Nami or Cube have found on the champion over here as well. But it's going to be locked in for ZDZ, and they have their last pick to go towards that mid lane. See what
for their new guy, for Ping Z, which I think is actually really interesting to keep as the final pick here. He will just go ahead and lock in the Akali, and hey, if there's ever a test to say welcome to the LPL, it's how good is your Akali.
That's really fun for me to track, because many years ago it used to be like your Twisted Fate, your Orianna, your Syndra. Those are the picks that you're looking towards. Now it is Akali, get yourself some montage moments, start assassinating people left, right, and center. And of course, we saw an awesome game of that earlier on.
Oh!
A Zoe as a response.
So,
now we haven't seen that pick for a little while.
Little bit here. So I was talking with Hysterics before. We were trying to get some more information on Ping Z, right? He was on the FPX Blaze roster that won the LDL here in summer, right? But the fact of the matter is, he's a Zoe player. He loves Zoe. They were hovering it throughout the whole picks bans, and now Qing takes it, who himself is a Zoe player as well, into Ping Z, and I think, oh man, I know we're looking at bot lane so much.
Question though, whether you do see that dragon rear its head.
We'll see as we hit the rift for our second series of the day. It's Anyone's Legend versus Ultra Prime in a best of 3 to see who comes away with their first win here of the split. A little bit more, again, desperation for AL here. They don't want to go 0-3. Ultra Prime don't want to go 0-2. The Jayo bring out, which will be early focus on Xiaohao, on the Elise, and what Ning can do to stop a potential snowball.
I think that just showed up there as well. 300th game in the LPL for Ning. We've got some rookies on the Rift. Some players coming in, making their first impressions. Some players which have been around for an awful lot longer than that too. We also talked about Betty on the other side for anyone's Legend and SwordArt. They have been around for a very long time. Yeah. Some of you who are around for, say, I think probably around about 20, I think it was 2018 MSI. That was when Betty was on that Flash Wars roster, which went something like 7-3 in the group stage. They did so well from outside of a made region. Well, I suppose the LMS kind of was made a region at that point. It was a bit weird in between, but Betty has played 600 odd games across his career. Doggo been more of a newer class of AD carries across the international scene, but great mix between the two rosters of new and old.
And like, yes, Betty, Doggo, cool. Then you just have right next to them SwordArt and Baolan. Like, yeah, that's what I love about this season. There's so many moments as a caster that, yes, it's serious. It's intense, right? I've been a fan of this league for so long. To see the likes of SwordArt versus Baolan in a lane, like, that just gets me going, right? Like, it makes me so happy that we get all this chaos in this new split with some of these new additions, but it's as well as to see how they do on the Rift. I think Betty and SwordArt had the possibility to be a extremely deadly bot lane, as we saw a lot of success at the end of last year for them, or at least for Betty himself.
Quickly talking about what's happening on the Rift, though. Elise headed towards bot side, shadowing that bot lane. That's what we know Elise is to do, but it leaves an opening for Ning to do something top side. Try to get a kill on this Jax early.
He jumps forward, will be taking the bait here. The charge come through, Hery does get flashed away from by ZDZ. He should be flashing back, and now going back and forth is ZDZ. Trying to make it out, trying to make it to Xiaohao.
Oh, Elise is in now.
And yeah, they saw what was coming. They had a ward in the river and see Xiaohao on the way, so that means Ultra Prime pull away.
How the heck does ZDZ get away with that play? He jumps in. There is a Renekton Sejuani he's facing up against, and he gets out. Ends up blowing the flash, of course, but blowing double flashes in return. Gets the wave crash. He means he's going to be safe on his wave state after this point. He can reset, he can do whatever the heck he wants. Anyone's Legend, very important play early to not get punished on that wave crash.
Let's see the early movements around the map as well. Quickly coming to the aid of ZDZ as Xiaohao will take advantage.
No, hang on. Gotta tell this out. Survives that play, 2-for-1 flash, goes back and buys a cull. ZDZ is balling at this point. He says, yeah, I'm alive, it's okay. Absolutely nothing's going to happen in later phase after this point. Goes back and buys a cull. And if we now see what happened in the previous series where top lane becomes a bit of an island, Jax versus Renekton, a bit more variable in terms of the plays which happen after that point. That can be very, very valuable. But Ning hasn't stopped, doesn't have the flash, but doesn't have any cares either. Looking towards the bot side.
Doggo and Baolan taking a couple of shots from the tower, though, and that means that the dive will actually not go off for Ning. He has to back away.
So, Ning looks at top, looks at bot, doesn't find much in either. Probably trades down on that top side, doesn't really find anything in that bot side. And that means that, for somehow, the Elise has managed to get a healthy advantage in that jungle, and that will be something that I will have to look at as the game goes on.
That's
as
actually
well.
kind of huge.
Elise is, yeah, because Elise is in a state now where, particularly when you have something like a Night Harvester as well, really does have a good 1-2 item spike, and can also affect early as well.
Love that vision toggle. It is so dangerous for Hery out here. He's trying to get a kill back, but first blood goes to anyone's Legend.
And it's the first kill to the Cull Jax. ZDZ, I love the amount of swag this guy has ran through the first 5 minutes of this game. He still has teleport. He still has a free setup at that top side, so Hery will have to teleport back in, crash it. This Jax is set up for so much success. As much as we talked about how this bot lane, wow, Betty, Doggo, this top lane has very quickly become a flashpoint for this game.
It really has. I think that strength will come to bear sooner rather than later. Yeah, that lane is not going to be fun, it feels like, for Hery at this point. You do see Betty getting a little bit low in the trades in bottom side with Xiaohao on his way here. Will be spotted out on the ward. We'll clear that one. As Dragon is alive with potentially attempting to back Doggo. Means if they do get this back off, that could just be first objective for them. Or they could just look for a dive as they're bringing Ping Z down here.
Well, Doggo has 0 mana. He really can't outplay the situation that badly. Good flash away.
Get the flash and the heal out of Baolan as the tower taking the brunt of the work from Betty and SwordArt down on the bottom side. That is an attempted gank onto Ultra Prime that will not be there, but I'm sure a revisit will be on the table for AL.
Yeah, AL, absolutely great early game from them. Really finding a lot of value in top side and also stabilizing those spot side as well, not being exploited anywhere across the map. Mid lane, also even. Merc Treads built up for the Akali, very good against the high amount of CC and magic damage coming in from that mid-jungle duo. Now you're looking at Ultra Prime, and you're thinking, okay, Ning tried to explode the game in a way which Ning has done so many times in many of his 299 other games in the LPL in the past, but struggling to land any of these blows in this one. And that means that suddenly you have a Renekton in a matchup, which gets a little more difficult as the game goes on. You've got a bot lane which really needs to get to their first item now, but can't really influence the game too much up until that point, because this early game lane hasn't gone as well for them. Ultra Prime, they're really waiting for the level 6 mark, and then maybe they can make a play around Herald. Renekton is very good around that Herald, but it's looking a little bit difficult in this early game so far.
Oh, okay, the ward goes down, but if he walks out, he's going to start off the back here. Doggo dodging out. Not going to find anything there just yet. What I am seeing, though, is a lot of boots purchased on this map. Is that our new meta? Is that what we do
Boots meta.
Go boots. Everybody likes their shoes.
No, it's not like they're like walking around the household, take shoes off before you come indoors. They're going out into the wilds, and actually in this game, particularly from the mid-jungle 2v2, there's an awful lot of value. It's double AP mid-jungle from both sides. Sejuani, as though you don't build the AP. I mean, AP Sejuani is hilarious, but you don't build it. You do mostly magic damage. The Merc Treads are very important for stuff like the Cocoon, stuff like the Bubble, stuff like the Sejuani ult as well. I can understand them being built up there. And that does mean that, of course, you're going to have very different skirmishes. You need to take that into account. Actually, maybe a Cocoon doesn't lead to a one-shot kill at that point. But it doesn't mean you can't still, well, you shouldn't still be afraid of that Fog of War. It's mid-jungle 2v2. We're already talking about that before in terms of how the Akali and the Elise. The Cocoon is very, very dangerous, exploding out of Fog of War. But it's not like Ultra Prime's mid-jungle can't do the same with that Zoe long-range explosion paddle star.
You see SwordArt on the way with Xiaohao will be spotted out as they walk around these couple wards from Ultra Prime. Rift Herald's on the table, Dragon's on the table. Ning's going to go ahead and start up the Rift Herald. Wonder if we see the trade here for Xiaohao on the bottom side.
So I think this is wise from anyone's legend. Briefly talked about it before. Even when Renekton was out of meta last year, for bits of it, Renekton was still very good around Herald fights. You just didn't want to fight him at that point, and then the rest of the game kind of got easier from that point. I think they're looking towards the bot side. PingZ looking to get his first involvement in the game. No flash on Baolan. Doggo has everything though, but his ultimate, watch out for that diving.
Level 6. Baolan needs level 6. They're trying to get the tidal wave. Okay, they're going to TP Qing in. They're going to go in first, though. They already get Baolan as Betty gets the kill. SwordArt takes the shot. Oh, PingZ going back in. Gets sleep. Qing gets the kill. And welcome to the LPL, baby.
Oh, first involvement in the game. Gets an assist that dive. And it looked like it was completely fine at that point. Gotten away that teleport. Managed to get at least one kill, but it is a massive overreach after that point, and now Qing, first kill on that Zoe. Zoe with gold, very, very difficult for anyone's legend to deal with if they start comping up with Sejuani ults later into that game. Gonna go back into the replay to see, of course, how this came about. Nami was always going to be the target. Of course, Nami doesn't mind dying first in this situation, as long as it allows Doggo to do something in return, to get some burst out, but honestly, the tower's the MVP, and yeah,
that was bold. Bold, Cotton. Bold.
Yeah. Cut the tape. Dive ended that. Nothing happened after that point. Force ends up going down. And despite having the Mercury Treads to get rid of some of that magic damage, get rid of some of that CC, is not nearly enough to outplay that.
And now looking back at the state of the map, that does mean that Ning came away with the Rift Herald without getting the dragon responded in. So Ultra Prime look like they're putting a little bit more focus around there. Actually not going to go for this dragon just yet, but a little bit more presence down towards bottom side of the map.
So, doesn't actually end up being a trade at all in those objectives, as you were saying. It's going to be the Herald. Already secured. Dragon first stack as well. And for me, this is very much against the run of play from what Ultra Prime have been suffering so far. Before this, we had a huge amount of blue side vision all the way over this bot side of the map. You can already see that SwordArt and Betty clearing out some of it. But we also had top lane, an awkward spot. Bot lane, awkward spot. Mid lane was even, so actually Ning didn't have options across the map, but capitalizing on a mistake from anyone's legend in an imprecise dive, suddenly Ultra Prime have a way back into this game. They can make a big power play around the Sejuani ult and the Zoe and the Culling at some point later into this game. That's what I'm looking for next. They have that Herald to put down afterwards. Now suddenly it's anyone's legend that needs to be on the responsive back foot to make sure that Herald play isn't as huge as it could be.
I think something that we were wanting for Xiaohao and the Elise is kind of that early foray, trying to find a little bit of gold, get that power presence going for the Elise. We have seen a little bit of influence, but not maybe as much as we want for the earlier part of the game for AL. Now Ning feeling a little bit better in the setup as he's getting tanked here, and now with this Rift Herald, looks like bottom lane will be that focus.
Putting down the Herald, but that's going to be a cocoon landing. Good chunk. Maybe with that chunk, passive taken away, maybe Ning is feeling less likely to dive, but still high enough HP to really threaten. Doggo has the ult pulls in.
A lot on the Betty. The charge does come off. Gold shared between the trio. A couple of plays at least. So, gold delivered to the bottom lane of Ultra Prime, rightfully so. Sleep goes in onto Ping Z. Where did he hit that one from? Did he hit that from the log piece of terrain right there?
Oh
my god, he's gonna
well.
get him again! Qing! The mid lane master Zoe Qing coming in here and giving Ping Z the workaround a little bit. Ning in trouble. He's just kind of sitting still there. Tidal wave comes across just in case.
Yeah, not sure about that one.
With some chaos going around a little bit. Nymaera?
I think that was less of like an ocean wave and more like a wave goodbye, because that was going nowhere near any
He wanted to make sure he was washed off. Didn't want any of the like electricity. I mean, I guess water and electric probably didn't. Anyways, let's go away from that one.
No. Where the hell was that going? Betty as Lise is trying to walk forwards. Ning still has the ult. Forwards.
Oh, Glacial Prison just barely misses, and in the flash afterwards. So Betty might get return ganked, but that was a big play to get out of a potential punish by Ning.
Yeah, well, Ning hanging towards that bot side, very importantly so, because Elise was there as well. But now, that Herald gives a load of plates over towards Doggo. Doggo is hit as a 1.5 item spike. You can see that shield bow has been picked up for Zeri as well. But top lane dive, we're slightly going towards these solo lanes. This is what they can do at the top here.
All right, Hery's going to flash early, trying to get out with the slice and dice, stuns him up, but Xiaohao tanking it up beautifully. ZDZ locked down, but not going to find any more tower shots underneath it. And big response, honestly, needed by AL.
Well, that's the elephant in the room, I suppose, in this game is that, okay, cool, bot lane, awesome. We know how important bot lane is in the current meta, but particularly in the LPL, if you let a Jax get ahead, the game becomes nigh unwinnable, especially when you have it into something like a Jax and a melee jungler as well, like the Sejuani. You're now at a point where the Cull has popped, you have another kill going over towards ZDZ as well. This Jax is ready to absolutely take over wherever on the map they are as well. So ZDZ, Ultra Prime are going to have to really look at ways to deny Jax good entry into fights, play around as much range as they can, and stop from getting involved in these plays.
You gotta take a look back at that one. And trying to flash the predict from Xiaohao. Actually incredible.
I
thumbs up. Look.
I actually didn't quite see like what with the stun was there. I didn't quite know if that was like obviously the counter strike was way off. So I just missed that in live and I was like, huh, that looked funky. You look back at it on the replay and Hery really been showing what's what by Xiaohao.
Actually incredible. Wow, like, I'd love to see. I mean, I guess it's kind of predictable if he's going to try to go back under tower, but that's good stuff. And that also...
Okay, you say it's kind of easy, it's predictable or whatever. And you try doing that. I miss those all the time.
I would never be able to do it. I would never, ever. But Rift Herald is started up by Ning here. He will be a press up. Doggo caught transition here. The final chapter coming out, but Xiaohao with the readjust onto Ning. DDZ's here as well. Flash over. Baolan is down. Xiaohao is ruthless in this matchup right now.
Yeah, critical mission failure. Didn't manage to stop Jax getting into the play. It's going to be a Herald going over to anyone's legend, and as much as there was a road bump earlier on after the failed dive under that bot lane tower, Ultra Prime now are sitting down at a huge amount of gold on the top side of the map to stare down, and I don't think they have great answers to it as it stands.
Finally, he's slowly going over. Dragon's coming up on the board now. You see Ning on his way down there, towards the bottom side of the map itself. But resets coming out from the bottom lane of AL. We'll try and get them back here. And now that we've had our first item completions pretty much across the board, except for the junglers, now Night Harvester completed for Xiaohao. I'm wondering what next steps are, at least in these next skirmishes, for Ultra Prime, who have gotten, you know, the Everfrost, Gale Force, things like that from Qing and Doggo, and want to continue stacking up this dragon as we see Ning starting it up right now.
Well, there's the easy one. This one's on the checklist on the bingo card. You got 1 item spikes on this bot lane. The Lucian Nami, Gale Force, Imperial Mandate, incredible amount of damage. And if someone like Zeri is caught out of position, they are consigned to a green screen for a little bit. Going towards this dragon, they had this control over this side of the map, as much as anyone's legend are. Running over top side, Ultra Prime at least managed to get something towards that dragon. 2 stacks, Hex Tech Soul as well, incredibly valuable. Still probably strongest soul on the patch. So they can definitely look towards that one. But 1 item aside, Betty walking up with the wave means that he's safe from the culling. It takes a good trade.
The bottom lane tower go down, so trading and at least realigning with the tower advantages here, 1-to-1. And I think that with that, I think Ultra Prime will be okay with it. 3,000 gold down, maybe not okay with it, but they're stacking up dragons here. They're getting some item completions across. Yeah, a little bit of owl there. But we do want to see Ning kind of set up Doggo and Baolan. The CC chain will be incredible from the Ultra Prime entire competition.
Yeah. And at least you can see from Ning that he's trying to put himself into position to at least threaten anyone's legend whenever they would look for aggressive plays, because you don't want to start dashing forward into a Sejuani ult. That's key to a losing play at that point. However, also don't want to be looking at something like the Elise who catches you on your port jump.
Just so good on the Elise. Ping Z trying to make a play on a Qing. Had his number in lane, but can he do it? Don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
No.
He's not going to do it. And Renekton is going to be spotted. Yeah.
I mean, that's Mercury Treads diff. If you don't have that, you get exploded then. But he loses his flash and his ultimate, but forces Qing away from that turret. It's going to be second of the game for anyone's legend. And now side lanes very, very open. Long lanes for the Akali and the Jax to wreak havoc in. That's something which you don't really have an answer to on Ultra Prime. Your way of answering side lanes is slamming waves so hard in mid lane that anyone's legend have to respond to them and come away from their side lanes. If you're in a position where you can't do that, these side lanes are going to become a huge issue.
Yeah, I'm trying to like contemplate how they do this, but in this situation,
Betty,
this is how they do this. They catch Betty, but he's over the wall. That's the power of Zeri.
He loses a shield bow though, and this is now one of these key things. Talked about, okay, mid lane, force the response from anyone's legend. At least with that big trade, you're having something. See, Jax has to leave the side lane. He's walking back in. They're looking for a big trade.
Glacial Prison on top of the tidal wave, but it wasn't enough to get Betty locked down in time to get the damage. And that will be Betty surviving with the cleanse. Use the exhaust also from SwordArt. Mid lane still under siege by Ultra Prime.
But this is exactly what they need to do. Side lanes are not where you win. You need to force something in this mid part, around the mid tower, and make sure these side laners from anyone's legend aren't getting max value. The Jax doesn't want to be sat here tanking the long-range Zoe poke, the artillery coming in. And anyone's legend, as much as they still are in a good position in this game, a great position in this game, 4K up, very powerful carries on their top side and the Jax online, and of course the Elise reaching that 1.5 item spike. Ultra Prime are still managing to blunt that as much as they can currently.
And you know what's scary is like all it takes is one CC. You have 2 different kinds of
teleport.
bubbles. You got a prison, but we got a flank here coming in.
Teleport.
Ultra Prime trying to do the damage down, but Ping Z and ZDZ are here. Hery can't really get into the fight. 2 down already from Ultra Prime. We'll see the turn onto the Crocodilian himself. Maybe they'll be making some skin boots out of him here. He does get out the blast cone though. ZDZ still chasing him out with SwordArt. We'll get the flash out of the top laner of Ultra Prime, but Baron now in the sights of AL.
That is a great punish from AL. They managed to get that teleport deep behind them. Ultra Prime, they had vision across that mid lane. They thought they were safe, but they were caught out on one of the last remaining wards. Very early Baron spawn. AL, they pounced, but Ning is still in the area.
Ning is here. Betty just gave it away with the Ultra Shock Laser. Ning getting so low, he has to get away. He gets over the wall. Baron will go over to AL at 20 minutes and 55 seconds.
Very early timer on that Baron, and That's what happens when you don't manage to lock out the Jax or the Akali out of the game. You can play at range, awesome. Force them to stand under the turret. Well, they're not under the turret at this point. They're teleporting behind you. The vision control manages to come up with huge dividends for anyone's Legend. And as much as you got a lot of flashes, it's not enough to save the fight.
And the thing is, the Ultra Prime team comp is very much like, we love setting up, and if we set up, it looks really good. Qing doesn't have much reactionary tools. Like, you need a lot of setup for the siege and poke and things like that for the Zoe, and that right now is a crucial piece to the damage puzzle of Ultra Prime, and they've got to find a way to work around that.
In previous seasons, when Zoe was played a little more, you'd have something like a Thresh or a Tahm Kench, which could maybe help bail you out of a poorly timed portal jump or someone flanking you. That's just not the case in this kind of game. In this kind of meta, you don't have as many Warden-like supports, ones which can offer you mobility, an extra bit of safety, and untargetability, something like that from the Tahm Kench Devour. And when you've got something like a Nami tidal wave, you really want everyone to be in front of you so you can knock up all of them sequentially, back to front to back, play it through that kind of one-directional fight. Doesn't go out in all directions though. You'll see right there, anyone's Legend, as soon as they get multiple directions to a fight, the fight very much goes in their favor. And now they get to push in with the Baron buff, push in these side lanes which they're winning so hard, they get to take those multi-angle fights again. That's what I want to see more from them. Play from multiple directions, stop Ultra Prime from setting up a bulwark front to back.
Also, just seeing that little interaction between the Sleepy Trouble bubble and the repel, and not even getting affected by that one for Xiaohao, something that will be very useful going forward into these fights. And we'll see the setup for Ultra Prime, just trying to defend this outer tower in mid lane. Get a little bit of Poco Xiaohao as well. ZDZ is on the flank here. King Z almost gets caught by the Super Trouble bubble.
Oh,
Here comes
Akali,
King Z over the wall, and the flash stun from ZDZ with the counter strike. Is it enough? They get the tower, they get what they came for, and they get out. The Xiaohao almost dies. Flashing from Qing, and he gets the kill.
You can't flash away from that champion, it just gives them your summoner spell. Qing pounces, and while that started off largely the blueprint of what we wanted to see, taking a fight from multiple directions, flashing into the backline from Jax, you're still doing it under turret, you're still taking a lot of damage, and you don't quite manage to catch the carries out at the right kind of timing. So, while that started on the right foot, Ultra Prime managed to at least get something back as the tower falls.
What a play, man. I just love to see that all-in effort from AL, and especially King Z, wait till the last second to kind of take that shuriken flip. And here, I guess we're going to get to take a look at it, so let's see.
I think what they're trying to do is just try to maneuver around the bubble so they didn't fly through it on the way back in. And this is, again,
that's
like,
the best way to get out of a bubble.
Pretty sure we were talking about in regards to like how much value you can get out of the tidal wave, stuff like that. Actually, a lot of this fight from AL is what you want to see from them. It's just a couple of key skill shots landing from Ultra Prime, which make things a lot more questionable. The bubble lands, and now you've got 2 items on Qing. You have to pay attention to that a lot more closely after this point. But it doesn't stop the fact that you're still a huge amount of gold down. Side lanes are still getting absolutely pushed in roughshod by anyone's Legend, and Xiaohao can start running around with Yuumi and looking for big bursts.
Oh no. Okay, Ning.
Okay, well, Sejuani doesn't count. Sejuani's like the one person you can't do that to, but point stands, I hope.
Still though, for a takey son of a gun like me, that was a lot of damage to take on just a hello, how do
Thank
you
you
do?
for at least trying to bail me out at that point. Like,
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I got you, bro.
The first cast together, you know, got to make sure you treat me fairly kindly.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Well, that's what we're going to have to see from Ultra Prime as well in this game, bring it back to what is on screen. Doesn't help, though, if Baolan gets caught out around here. Fog of War is oh so dangerous there. The jungle is dark and full of spiders. Xiaohao is a very buff one at that. Heading towards a Zhonya's, has a stopwatch, has an awful lot of burst potential if you're caught out of position. I really like how anyone's Legend are getting vision control. He's fishing for that Koi on the bot side and that support role, and getting that vision control, holding that Fog of War, pushing in across lanes. Ultra Prime, they haven't seen the other side of the river for a very long time at this point, which will make it very difficult to fight around the next Dragon Spawn, the next Baron Spawn, which may be ways for them to get back into the game. But it's just that extra degree of uphill battle they need to face.
Yeah, I mean, Doggo just did complete his IE, so I think there is a decent amount of hope in terms of the damage profile that they can do. But it's about execution at this point, and with the lack of range and the setup that AL have, it's very difficult for
going
Doggo
the multi-angles
to
again, see if they can
fights.
actually find an engage, though.
again, Qing in these kinds of situations is in so much trouble. Doggo has to flash away. Baolan is already dead. Betty just guns him down in the line of fire. Hery flashing out immediately after TPing. It's all gone for naught for Ultra Prime.
It's only the one kill, which is something, but now you don't have... Okay, good skill shot. Is that going to lead to anything? Don't think it is at this point, but... Fine. They're not getting absolutely exploded. They're not getting blown out in these fights, but it's still hemming them back. It's pinning them back to their side of the map. They're losing more vision. They're losing more gold, and they don't have a great way to answer this, because while this is happening, they're still losing side lanes. They're still They're still losing farm on at least one lane. They don't have the numbers and the power in those numbers to start farming all of these lanes. AL, this is, I'm not going to say a death by 1,000 cuts, because it's more than that. They are actually winning fairly big in the skirmishes that they're taking, but they're still winning on multiple fronts.
Well, I would say the side lane execution has been really
not
but
sure you win
as
this
I
one,
speak about it,
You
GDZ
don't
about to
win
take a
this one,
1v2. Hery flashes out. Now he's in a 1v4. He's taking up a storm, and he's out of there, baby.
That's not 5. That's only 4. And if you're starting that in the 1v2 with your 2 melees, who Jax is designed to absolutely slaughter, you're not going to win that. So when it comes down to trying to play the next objective spawns, we're talking about it being difficult for Ultra Prime to get across the river, to get vision. They try and at least answer on a side lane. They don't manage to do that. They lose that dragon. And now AL have complete leisure now. But they are at their own leisure to go back, start pushing these waves again with only one objective on the board. They're not forced to trade even from ahead. They can set up around this Baron and put this first game to bed.
Yeah, third item, spike now for ZDZ with that Frozen Heart, Black Cleaver, Divine Sunder combo. Also got a little bit of work to do in the mid lane here. Ning tries to get Betty, but now he has to flash out. Repel comes through for Xiaohao. Cocoon following. ZDZ's on the flank. Cut off by Hery, but it doesn't matter. Counter-Strike lands on it too. Final chapter on top of it might just be that for Ultra Prime in this first game. Baolan just obliterated after Betty says so. Ting follows short after, and the only one left is Hery, who does not want to be made into those boots today. Baron on the table for anyone's legend.
Now that is an unceremonious teamfight defeat. Ultra Prime, they've been hanging on pretty okay in regards to some of these skirmishes, only losing the 1 kill, maybe trading 1 for 1. This is the first real blowout fight. Clean 4 for none lost on the side of anyone's legend, and finally from anyone's legend, we're seeing Betty, we're seeing SwordArt be a factor in these games. It has mainly been ZDZ and Xiaohao firing the guns early off into this game, but this duo, the Flash Wolves duo reunited after such a long time, finally getting some good team fight wins under their belt.
Yeah, and for me, it's watching their movement through this, right? I think a lot of things get lost in these crazy fights, and I love to see the engagement from ZDZ on the back line, but a lot of the time, it is that experience that's really coming to bear for Betty and SwordArt. And I think, yes, I'm going to play a lot into it, but the happiness I saw on their faces when they were taken to the stage, the laughs, the conversations between two very historic players in terms of how their experience is laid out for them, I love to see this come up after a break, after coming off some very rough performances for both of them, to be performing like this.
And I think actually, you know, that veterancy, that tenure, where that really comes to show is actually not being the focus of what Anyone's Legend had done, particularly in the mid-game, right? Because it actually was going towards the Jax. Playing without resources is a much harder job than playing with the resources. I think a lot of people who come up from solo queue, come up from LDL, come up from whatever development leagues you've been in, you know how to play with the resources, play from ahead, you know how to do all the eye candy moments. Playing as Betty and SwordArt, who are eating bubbles, eating Sejuani ults, and still not having died, that is the sign of real skill, which does go beyond just those big damage numbers. And then also getting big damage numbers now. But hey, you know,
yeah,
both
I was going to say, the Zeri helps with that last part at least. So there you go. And it's just such a fitting style for them, right? They bear the brunt of the damage. They end up in a very high podium because of that in the end. I think that's where we saw originally what I was talking about with Betty's late season success last year, where we saw him really find that success. Now ZDZ will still be the menace in the side lane. We still have Betty and the trio at least pushing in the mid lane with King Z on the side. And looks like ZDZ and Xiaohao want to combine for a little bit more. This is getting a bit chaotic as Betty and SwordArt do get out of there.
No culling again though, which means that you don't have that really long-range burst tool available from the Lucian. He is a short-range AD carry, but when his ult is up, you don't get to play inside that range. With that being down, Ultra Prime deprived of an important tool to defend on all 3 lanes. Very rarely see 3 lane
They
pushes,
can't do it!
but they're so powerful, man. They're just so strong. They're losing across all lanes.
Yeah, like they were holding back the flood, but at some point the water's got to flow. And AAL at this point are the water, and Ultra Prime's base is in the path. Everything else is going to fall. All the inhibs will end up falling. This should be a short and sweet end for AL in game number 1. Unless Ultra Prime want to try to make something happen against ZDZ. It's looking too far gone at this point, Nymaera.
Yeah, trying to hold back the flood, but no Master Chief to save them from this one, and it will be ringing in the end of this first game. 3 waves down, Baron buff, so much power, teleports in, towers falling.
Ping Z will come away with the first series, coming with a dub. The team forming around him, it feels like, and honestly, great performances across the board from start to finish for AL, and that'll be the end of game number 1 as a whole. Great stuff. I love to see the cheering, love to see the happiness, especially Xiaohao getting to rock out the Elise as well and having a big say in the early parts of the game against the legend like me.
Fairly clean game, all things considered. And after coming back from that break, ringing in those changes from Anyone's Legend, you had to question, what form are these teams coming in on? There weren't great games from Anyone's Legend before that break. They were 0-2 in series, one of the couple of teams that did play those 2 series. Not everyone, of course, doing that. But they come back, making a change in that mid lane. But also, for me, it feels like a change in mentality. Suddenly, SwordArt is not getting blasted in lane, not being a factor throughout the rest of it. ZDZ, who was serviceable at best before the break, comes back with a real swag performance, who like 1v2s to escape that first blood, comes back with a cull, gets a kill anyway, and then slaughters the rest of the team fights after that point. Very good shift in mentality and firing on all cylinders coming back.
It's and again, going to the questions we had before, right? What kind of style are they going for? I'd love to see Ping Z kind of given the confidence of an Akali mid lane. It wasn't maybe the bar that we wanted for the first performances of Akali on the LPL, but
forget about
it was stable enough. Yeah. It was stable enough, right? And I think against Qing, who was on such a big comfort pick on the Zoe for him, that's something else to factor in, that they were still able to work around this mid lane, even the way it was going. So again, the come up a performance here in week number 3 for AL so far is looking great, but that is the question: does this strategy stay? Do they continue to find a composition like this where they have so much forward momentum from the jungle?
And on the other side, actually, a lot of that early momentum for the jungle could have gone so much differently if Ning had just about landed those plays. That 1v2 top side. If that led into a kill, maybe things changed there. He also went then bot side to look for a dive there. If that had worked out, suddenly that's 2 side lanes which are going in favor of Ultra Prime. The Evolution Nami that can get to the right spike zone. You can see Doggo actually did a fair amount of work, but he was never ahead of the game. If you do that from ahead, actually that's a kill. That is killing that outer turret when they tried to go for it, rather than it extending into that flank play, which ended them with them getting absolutely blasted and losing the Baron after that point. There are some moments in this game you can look back on for Ultra Prime and say, actually, you know what, this could have been a game-changing play, but the execution wasn't quite there, and they end up falling behind the curve and getting punished for it.
And that, sadly, feels like a theme so far for Ultra Prime. That's where, like, we had the same question for both sides, like, what kind of strategies, styles are you going to come with for structure and comfortability here? And it felt like getting comfort for Qing, having the Sejuani set up for Ning in the jungle was going to be a ticket to that success. But now that kind of turns it on its head, and especially the bot lane not going their way, even though they were very fine opting into this very aggressive style. It's obvious that later that we went, it was more so the Betty and SwordArt show. And so do you think for next game, Ultra Prime really kind of changed things up in their draft, or do you think it's just that execution that you were kind of mentioning?
That's a difficult question, because for me, I think it is less about the draft and more about the execution and the way that they set things up. They had some moments of actual real intelligence. We called it out when it came down to them losing side lanes versus the Akali and the Jax. Actually, they had a really good response to that, going through mid lane, pushing that tower, and forcing them to come from the side lanes to mid. But the vision control wasn't quite there for them to survive the flank off of that ward otherwise. I'm not going to say throw everything out. I think there actually were some good moments from Ultra Prime. It just looks a lot worse because the moments that they lost in obviously were huge fulcrums, turning points for the game.
Yeah, and I do believe that's going to be something they want to kind of pull back on going into the second game, especially. I wonder if we do get to change up sides or anything along those lines, especially since hopefully we'll be getting a refreshed Ultra Prime going into it. We'll be going to break hopefully pretty soon, but especially looking at as a whole, again, this AL's come up in game number 1. I'm very excited to see what they can kind of bring to the table for Ping Z and the rest of them in game number 2. We are going to go to that break. We'll be back with game number 2 of our second series.